Morning and welcome to the Universalist Church, in which love is the spirit. We are so glad you are here, even those of you amongst the sweltering warmth of the sanctuary, as well as those of you who are anywhere in the world. I'm Jennifer Madison, your liturgist for today. I wanted to first point out that for those in the sanctuary, we have a couple pitchers of water with some cups that if throughout the service you are a little toasty and need some refreshment, please don't hesitate to help yourself. I also want to take a moment to introduce several guest people today. We have our guest minister, the Reverend Dr. Jan Carlsson-Bull. She has been with us before. She is a retired, but as she says, not a tired minister, most recently in the UU Meriden congregation, and she continues to be active in the UU Ministers Association, as well as our larger congregational world. I'd also like to welcome and thank our guest pianist, Carolyn Halsted. She has arranged and written several of the musical selections we are going to be privy to today. She is a professional musician and professor. I'd also like to thank and welcome our guest soloist today, Daisy Lowe, who is a recent graduate of Western Connecticut State University. Thank you to all three of you for joining us. If you are a visitor, we hope that you will sign our guest book or visit our webpage to learn more at www.westhartforduu.org. There you can use the contact page to get onto our electronic mailing list. Our electronic communications are the best way for us to stay connected. We look forward to helping you become part of the Universalist Church. We are in an in-between pandemic moment. The risk of severe illness is considered low, though our levels of transmission are higher than anyone would like. If you wish to protect yourself until transmission is negligible, please wear a high-quality mask. We have them available from the ushers if you need one. Please remember that masks are required for unvaccinated people over 2 years old. After worship, we will have a fellowship hour outside near the portico or online via Zoom. You can find the link for the Zoom on your weekly notes or in our Breeze calendar. If you aren't getting the weekly notes, please sign up for it on our website. And I want to take an extra moment to remind those of you who came in late as well as who were here, please help yourself to the water on the sides of the sanctuary. And now, I invite you to take a moment, make your mobile phone silent, turn off your email, and put away your keyboard. Settle in for worship. If you happen to have a home chalice, please light it with us. We light our chalice like the sun that rises in the east, herald of a brand new day, harbinger of light that has never before shone, messenger of epiphanies we cannot yet imagine, bearer of the miracle that is now. Our opening hymn is number 1000 in the Teal hymnal. Please rise in body or in spirit, in the sanctuary or wherever we sing together. Please join me in speaking the words of our affirmation, our covenant, as printed in the order of service and in the description online. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to speak the truth in love, and to help one another. Please be seated.
Once again, welcome. It's so good to be with you here this morning, and also a welcome to our online congregation, who I trust are in the comfort of your air-conditioned homes. We who are here in this sanctuary are not in air conditioning, so we'll have to pretend or imagine something like that. There was once a fellow who was exceedingly forgetful. So quickly did he forget that when he awoke each morning, he couldn't remember where he had laid his clothes the night before. This became so frustrating for him that he couldn't fall asleep. He was so troubled, even fearful, about finding upon waking the items that he had carefully placed in preparation for the next day. So, what to do? Of course, it suddenly dawned upon him to write it down. He took his small notebook and pen in hand, wrote precisely exactly where he had placed each item of clothing, and a simple map of his home with the placement of his bedroom and the kitchen in bold with a line connecting the two. No brainer, yes? Placing his notebook on the nightstand next to his bed, he closed his eyes, confident that he would find everything he needed to begin the next day. Knowing this, he fell soundly asleep. As the sun shone through his bedroom windows, he woke up, stretched, noticed what he had placed on his nightstand, and read of each item. Underwear at the foot of the bed, pants on the back of a nearby chair, shirt on the bedpost, jacket on the hook of his bedroom door, and even a map showing him how to get to his kitchen for breakfast. Soon he was completely dressed toward breakfast, hoping, of course, that he would remember where the cereal and milk and fruit were. But suddenly he was filled with dread. Yes, yes, he said aloud. I found my underwear, pants, shirt, and jacket. I've even found the kitchen. But who am I? Where am I? Where is it I really am? He searched and searched, even stumbling into a mirror, but he didn't recognize who he was in the mirror, or even what he was. He didn't even recognize where he really was. Reb Hanuk Heinich, the source of this story, paused for a moment and concluded, I wonder if that is how it is with each of us as well. Are we here and now? Or are we going through our to-do list for the day? Or remembering an argument we had with a friend? Or worrying about our bank balance? Or still shaken by last night's news? Who are we? What are we? Where are we? And what are we really missing? Return again, return again, return to the home of your soul. Please join me. Return again, return again, return to the home of your soul. I can't hear you. Return to who you are. Return to what you are. Return to where you are. Born and reborn again. Return again. Return again. Return to the home of your soul. Return again. Return again. Return to the home of your soul.
The voluntary offering, the sharing of our resources for a shared work as a religious community, is a spiritual practice for us. By offering your time, talent, and treasure to this community, you help us serve the members, friends, and wider community of this congregation. As part of that service, we share our general offering each week with organizations that do work in the world that bring us ever closer to creating the beloved community. Excuse me. Our plate sharing recipient for August is Real Art Ways. Real Art Ways is a nonprofit organization dedicated to bringing the arts to the community through film, exhibitions, performances, and gatherings where all are welcome. It began in 1975 as an artists' living and working collective and has evolved to become one of the country's outstanding contemporary art spaces, one that has a special link with its own community. They work with emerging and established artists, have a diverse and dynamic audience, and are deeply committed to giving LGBTQ and BIPOC artists and performers nurturing space in which to develop and share their work. To give electronically, please use the QR codes on your order of service, the links in the description, or those on our website to make your donation to our offering. Here in the sanctuary, our offering will now be gratefully received. May these gifts sustain the work we do together, the life of this community, and the wider world of which we are a part. Thank you. Please rise in body or spirit as we speak our congregational reading to worship, number 441 in the Gray Hymnal. Our responsive reading this morning is a gift of wisdom from Jacob Trapp. No, this Trapp was not the famed father of the Trapp family singers, but a Unitarian Universalist minister who served congregations as far away as Salt Lake City and as nearby as Summit, New Jersey. I will speak the words in the Roman type, and we will speak together the words in italics. To worship is to stand in awe under a heaven of stars, before a flower, in a leaf, a leaf in sunlight, or a grain of sand. To worship is to be silent, receptive, before a tree astir with wind, or the passing shadow of a cloud. To worship is to work with dedication and with skill. It is to pause from work and listen to a strain of music. To worship is to sing with the singing beauty of the earth. It is to listen through a storm to the still, small voice within. Worship is a loneliness seeking communion. It is a thirsty land crying out for rain. Worship is kindred fire within our hearts. It moves through deeds of kindness and through acts of love. Worship is the mystery within us, reaching out to the mystery beyond. It is an inarticulate silence yearning to speak. It is the window of the moment, open to the sky of the eternal. Let us join in singing our doxology. Please be seated.
Please join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life and God of us all, we are grateful to be here this morning. In this congregation gathered in this sanctuary, in this congregation gathered electronically. We are grateful for all that is our life, for resilience, for hope, for the possibility of peace and grace in this hurting world, for wellness and wholeness. Let's keep in our prayers and circle of energy as a community Julio M., whose back surgery did not go well. He's recovering at home, able to alternate between his walker and walking on his own in his house. Every now and then he gets outside to walk with his walker. He misses our community and sends his love. Please send him cards or give him a call. I'm sure you can find his address from our church administrator. Good news abounds for Karen H. She is healing well and will begin her orientation at the animal shelter for her work assignment this Tuesday as a caregiver. She's thrilled to be back with all the animals and staff she's come to know. Two of our other congregants who have been handling illnesses are at home and doing well and appreciate all the care and concern of this congregation. Finally, a reminder that next Sunday at 1 p.m. we'll be holding a celebration of life for Sally S. All are welcome to participate in this celebration. Let's hold in our hearts the yearnings, the gladness, the sadness, and hope of this day. So may it be, and amen, and please join me in spirit of life. Henry David Thoreau is one of my favorite characters, and he was a character. Brilliant, witty, fun-loving, and a far more social member of the 19th century community of Concord than most of us might guess from a fleeting knowledge of Walden. Henry, let's call him, was a participant observer of life to the fullest. Best known for his epic Walden, he also kept a journal, with his first words entered in late October of 1837. He was just 20 years old. It would run 2 million words and span 25 years, concluding with his final entry November 3rd, 1861, not long before his death the following spring at the not-so-ripe age of 44. The more I've read his work, the more I'm moved by how fully he lived each day. Often well into the night, Henry simply and profoundly paid attention and wrote about it. He was also a relentless reader in Latin, Greek, French, and yes, English. As for sharing some of his writing with you, let's begin with those memorable words he penned the second day after he arrived for his long visit at Walden Pond. It was July 6, 1845, a week to the day before his 28th birthday. I wish to meet the facts of life, the vital facts, which are the phenomena or actuality the gods meant to show us, face to face, and so I came down here. Life, who knows what it is? What it does. If I'm not quite right here, I'm less wrong than before. No surprise that he lived intentionally in the present. His journal entry of January 7, 1851 makes this clear. I must live above all in the present. I felt my spirit rise when I had got off the road into the open field and the sky had a new appearance. I stepped along more buoyantly. There was a warm sunset over the wooded valleys, a yellowish tinge on the pines. Reddish, dun-colored clouds, like dusty flames, stood over it. And then streaks of blue sky were seen here and there. The life, the joy that is in a blue sky after a storm, there's no account of the blue sky in history. Before I walked in the ruts of travel, now I adventured. And to give you a taste of what he experienced on this date, August 7th, though 2 centuries and 5 years ago. We see the rainbow apparently when we're on the edge of the rain, just as the sun is setting. If we're too deep in the rain, then it will appear dim. Sometimes it is so near that I see a portion of its arch, this side then tinging them. Sometimes we are completely within it, enveloped by it, and experience the realization of the child's wish. The obvious colors are red and green. Why green? It is astonishing how brilliant the red may be. What is the difference between that red and the ordinary red of the evening sky? Who does not feel that here is a phenomenon which natural philosophy alone is inadequate to explain? The use of the rainbow? Who has described it?
Look to this day, attributed to Kalidasa, a classical Sanskrit author from the 4th and 5th centuries CE. It also happens to be number 419 in Singing the Living Tradition. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence, the bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day.
I thank you, God, for most this amazing day. August 7th, 2022. Beyond a calendar description, it is simply and profoundly today. How does the mere mention of today, yes, August 7th, land for you? Perhaps as an anniversary. The anniversary of your own arrival in life as we know it. The anniversary of a child born, a child newly arrived by the gift of adoption, a first encounter with her or him with whom you would share your life, an introduction to one who would become your closest friend, the final embrace of a loved one whose life was ebbing. Today may shine or otherwise with the residue of relationships whose idiosyncratic milestones surface with annual intensity. Today may mark an event that has entered our collective unconscious or consciousness with an intensity so poignant that it invokes a surge of gratitude or a surge of grief. Consider that August 7th comes directly after a day never to be forgotten by the survivors of the myriad women, men, and children whose lives were devastated by a bomb that defied imagination. While some still regard that act as the only means to end a war, others among us regard it as a deed so ghastly that we are called to do everything possible to ensure that never again must such heinous means be employed to justify otherwise agreed upon ends. Today holds the nuanced and the blatant, the ho-hum and the oh my God. We may find ourselves at the post-service fellowship time in conversation with a congregant, known or newly met, and detect a strain in the voice, a reticence in the posture, a winsomeness in the eyes. The course of whatever conversation that follows will hinge on our own sense of discretion and our familiarity with the person in question. But the dynamic in play, the undercurrent that we sense, may rest in loves, conflicts, and sorrows unleashed by the calendar itself. Often we simply never know. August 7th may resound with the ballads, arias, and requiems of our lives, or it may be, of all things, an ordinary day. On a seemingly ordinary day, I stood as a young child with my nose pinched up against the screen door of our front porch, gazing across the gentle thoroughfare of North Adams Street and wondering. The place was a small Iowa town in the front hall of our frame house across from the public school I attended. The year was 1948. It's okay, you can do the math. Time stood still. I'm guessing it was early autumn, where there was a smoky, gently pungent scent in the air. It is 1948. This day in 1948. 1948 and this day have never been. They will never be again. I'm in it. Today has never been. It will never be again. This very moment has never been. It will never be again. I know it. I feel it. I breathe it. My epiphany of the nowness of time has lingered, is reflective, recurring, mildly anticipatory, and conscious. And it calls forth all my senses: visual, auditory, smelling, touching, maybe even tasting, else why would I salivate at the notion of chocolate? Only Connect reads the epigraph to E.M. Forster's classic novel, Howard's End. To connect with ourselves and one another, we meld with a moment in time, often through intense consciousness sometimes through immersion in the moment that seems so pure, it is instantaneously inscribed in the bones of our memory. Such was the preciousness of Emily Gibbs' connection with her family as rendered on the occasion of her 12th birthday in Thornton Wilder's drama, Our Town. Emily is the recently deceased young wife mourned so deeply by her husband and by the entire village that was Grover's Corners, New Hampshire, in the early 1900s. Trusting that his audience can suspend their disbelief, so this was a play, Wilder endows the inhabitants of the village cemetery with consciousness. Emily is one such inhabitant, a shadow among shadows. At the play's outset, Emily longs to return to life as she knew it, if even for a day. Her longing is realized, though admonished by a fellow shadow to choose the least important day of your life. It will be important enough. On the morning of an ordinary birthday, her 12th, Emily stands at the open window of her childhood home. She breathes it all in, the vision and voices of her mother, father, brother, moving through their morning litanies, are more than she can bear. I can't go on, she anguishes. It goes so fast. We don't have time to look at one another. I didn't realize. Do any human beings ever realize life while they live it? Every minute? Do we? How this evokes the sentiments of my own much-loved mother, whose life spanned a full century. On her 90th birthday, I asked Mom if I might interview her via camcorder on the 9 decades of her rich life. Yes, I'll do my best, she answered. I came prepared with a list of open questions covering her early years as a farm girl in rural Iowa, through her years as a professional nurse, her linkage with historic events, how she met my father, her parenthood of my brother and me, and into the day at hand. Of her carefully considered responses to every question I posed, what struck me most echoed the poignant epiphany of Emily Gibbs. Mom's blue eyes met mine as she said, "It goes so fast, Jan, it goes so fast." What does it take? What does it take for us to breathe deeply of this raw and poignant truth? We're each born into the miracle of life, striking the bargain that it will eventually morph into a state that I can only call the great mystery. All any of us might know is that we are here and now. How we are here and now is the question. How to be present, how to be who we are, what we are, where we are, when we are. Just after his arrival for an extended stay on Walden Pond, Henry David Thoreau wrote in his journal, "I wish to meet the facts of life, the vital facts which are the phenomena or actuality the gods meant to show us, face to face, and so I came down here. Life, who knows what it is, what it does?" In his wry wit, he penned the conclusion, "If I am not quite right here, I'm less wrong than before." Thoreau's characteristic humility is just one facet of his nature that draws me to his writing and to what I've learned of his life. Humor is another. Henry, let's call him, never forgot what it was to be a child, living wholly in the present, performing magic tricks, picnicking, and playing the jester to neighborhood children. This playful person who marched to his own drumbeat was adored by the offspring of his rather dour friend, the elder Emerson. Upon the occasion of Henry's death from tuberculosis at the age of 44, Ralph Waldo wrote in the August 1862 edition of The Atlantic, "I cannot help counting it as a fault in him that he had no ambition. Wanting this instead of engineering for all America, he was the captain of the Huckleberry Party." Henry had indeed been the captain of such gaiety, for he had led the young Emerson children on a number of expeditions in search of huckleberries, Pied Piper that he was. Years later, Edward Emerson, son of Ralph Waldo, recalled such times with great affection in his gem of a narrative, Henry Thoreau, as remembered by a young friend. How play is at the heart of moments that are cherished for a lifetime. Consider a concluding drop in wisdom in Thoreau's Walden. Only that day dawns to which we are awake. Only that day dawns to which we are awake. August 7th, 2022. An ordinary day? How I wonder, can this now that we inhabit, the we that is this congregation gathered in body and spirit, and the we that is life here and now in this cosmos, how can this now, the day at hand, be anything other than extraordinary? Benefits wrought by consciousness of now include the capacity to stretch the moment through a full awakening of the senses. In the early 1960s, I was one among a small cadre of students and a beloved professor hiking through the ancient city of Petra in southern Jordan. How many of you know where Petra is? Have you heard of it? A few, okay. There was no other access than by foot through the narrow gorge, sensibly accompanied by a Bedouin guide, for Petra was and still is populated largely by Bedouins. As junior year abroad students at the American University of Beirut, we had taken a hired taxi, a common way of long-distance travel, south from Amman, passing goatskin encampments of resident Bedouins to a point near the entrance to this ancient city, sculpted from a canyon. At midpoint into the gorge, we gasped at the now well-known carved temple, carved into the multicolored cliff by the Romans centuries ago. Just across the gorge was a small cave, I can still see it, with crudely carved steps leading up to it. In this cave, we opened our sleeping bags and our food supply for the next several days. Lots of pita and kumquats, which we called acadunas, and tang. Believe me, I will never have another drop of tang. It was decades before the tourist industry found it lucrative to establish 4- and 5-star hotels near the visitor center. I couldn't have imagined that then. The cave was our base camp from which we ventured into Petra's interior and hiked and wondered for the next several days. Night was not for hiking. It was darker than dark. Yet as I lay on my back on the protruding lip of the cave, I gazed skyward at a ribbon of stars. Nothing but darkness on either side, stars that were light years away, viewed from a city that was a spare 2 millennia young. All my senses were called into play. Time stretched into what the 20th century theologian Paul Tillich dubbed the eternal now. The now that was then became past, present, and future. Mystery and miracle. Our time, the time we have, is the time in which we have presence, observed Tillich. One of the myriad ironies of life's time is our desire to stretch some moments and vanquish others. There are life happenings that threaten to engulf us, to drown us in a moment, a momentum of the unwanted. Some form the predictable chaff of life, and some mar our humanity for decades to come. Consciousness and remembrance compel us both to prevent the unwanted dynamics of the past from recurring and to invite the celebratory dynamics of the past to return through festive rituals. Consider the ancient rites imbuing the summer solstice and the autumnal equinox. Consider how many of our congregations celebrate the winter solstice alongside Hanukkah and Christmas. I wonder, what marked the dawn of your consciousness of time? To what day of your life would you return if such a choice were granted to you from what will eventually be the other side of your life as you know it? How would you describe the intensity of your commitment to wakefulness? What image comes to mind as you resurrect your readiness to play? What do you deem as your ribbon of stars? How have you awoken to August 7th, 2022? How alive are we, to the day at hand? In the words spoken earlier this day, today well lived makes every yesterday a dream of happiness and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day, August 7th, brimming with the gift of the eternal now. May it be so, and amen. I invite us into a moment of silent meditation.
Please rise in body or spirit as we join in singing our closing hymn, number 1068 in the Teal hymnal.
Please be seated. Rather than a unison benediction, I invite you to open your teal hymnals to number 1057, Go Lift It Up. I am counting on you to sing this, led by Daisy and played by Carolyn, because after each stanza I will echo it in spoken words, and we'll do this twice. Go lift it up. Love bless your way. Moonlight, starlight, guide your journey into peace. And the brightness of day. Go lift it up. Love bless your